On here. All right, so we are continuing our series called What Do You Want? And want to make a couple of comments before we continue on with this series and with this teaching. First of all, I hope it has been helpful. I hope it is being helpful to push you, to encourage you, to challenge you, to massage you, to think a little bit about what's really, really deep down in who you are, deep down in your mind, deep down in your heart, what's really there. I want to say a couple things before we start. Number one, I do listen to feedback, and I have gotten some feedback, and so I want to clarify, apologize, whatever I need to do to put something in context. I probably shouldn't do this, but I still have baggage. Do you have baggage? So do I. So we understand each other. Sometimes I make light of or make fun of spiritual experiences, I'll put in quotes, spiritual experiences that some people have. What I want you to understand, and what I have tried to say in the past, I sound like a politician, is that things like being slain in the Spirit, things like laughter that comes spontaneously, things like that way that we've said that the Spirit manifests, I have experienced all of those things, and they are real, and they are true, and they are incredible encounters with God. Whenever I make light or make fun or make jokes about some of these things, I want you to understand that what I'm trying to draw attention to is the manipulative side of the Spirit, where men and women and organizations and things manipulate people into thinking that this is the Spirit moving when it's emotional manipulation. And there is a difference. And that can be incredibly damaging. And people may say, well, who are you to judge? I would rebuttal and say we are all supposed to be the ones who discern the spirits. I think that's in the Bible. That we are to judge and test the spirits and know whether or not they are of God. And so I want to just make sure that everyone understands, everyone listening, because I know we have people from a lot of different backgrounds that connect with OAM. Whatever experiences you have had, I am not making light of those experiences. I've told you before, I've been in the floor for hours at a time and could not get up. I understand what those experiences are. And I appreciate and I respect those experiences that I've had. But I've also been in a prayer line, and I've also had people screaming in my face and pushing on my head, trying to push me down. And I will make fun of that every time I get the opportunity. I will call it out and make light of it every time I get the opportunity, because it's a show. So I want to make that really, really clear. Number two, I said something last week that I want to elaborate on a little bit. We were talking about ritual and liturgy, which is the kind of the core of what we're talking about in this series, and I made the statement somewhere along the lines of, we look to the Jewish people because they have preserved the way to walk the Torah. They've not only preserved the Torah itself, but the halakha, the way that it should be done, right? And I want to make sure that I clarify this, because there are folks like our good friends Clint and Kiva at Anamkara, the Duns in Washington. Kiva is what she considers a Celtic Christian. And she follows the teachings of St. Patrick. Most of you are going like, what does this have to do with anything? What's a fascinating story that we never knew. Because St. Patrick is claimed by what denomination, or by the Catholics, right? But I didn't know until Kiva educated me that St. Patrick was actually trained in Galatia by disciples of the original disciples. And when he went to Ireland, what he was setting up was basically yeshivas. He was setting up sinners for people to learn and be discipled in the ways of Jewish tradition in many ways. And through all of the political unrest and the political shiftings between Ireland and England and all the history that's there, that's too much to go into today, Patrick got co-opted into Catholicism because they were the ruling empire. And so when I say we look to the Jewish people, it doesn't mean that there aren't other ways out there of having a liturgy, of having a ritual. And I'll go as far as to say this. People will disagree with this. That's okay. That's kind of what we do here. If you're Catholic, or if your family is Catholic, you have a Catholic background, or you have Catholic family. Listen, I know this is South Louisiana. You can't spit in a gentle wind and almost not hit a Catholic, right? That's just the nature of our demographics. So we all know someone who is Catholic or grown up Catholic, right? And I know in the Hebrew roots Messianic movement, the Catholic Church gets a lot of flack, man. They are the great Satan. They are the whore of Babylon, and all these other kind of things get said about the Catholic Church. So listen, I know Catholics, quote unquote, that go to church twice a year. But those twice a year are not Christmas and Easter like you might think. No. These are really good Catholics, which means they go for a funeral or a wedding. Because in the KC Hall, after both, there's going to have a band and a keg. Now, y'all watching from the north, y'all might not know what kind of Catholics I'm talking about, but that is, when you think of Catholics down here, that's a lot of what you think about, right? I know I used to play in the Cajun bands and lay on the ground and drink from the keg while the Catholics were all dancing after the wedding. So this is my world. But I also know Catholics that know why they're Catholic. They know their catechism. They know their history. They understand the why behind why they do what they do. And you know what? If that is your liturgy, if that is your ritual, if that is your way that conforms you to the image of Messiah, who am I to judge that? Okay? Whether it's Celtic, whether it's Catholic, whether it's whatever your liturgy and your ritual may be, my point is find a practice. We are drawn to the Torah of Hashem through the Jewish people. That is the way that we have found our finding practice and ritual. Things like Shabbat, things like the Hagim, the festivals, all these things. Whatever yours is, do something. Okay? So, I just want to make those things really clear. I don't offend on purpose all the time. Okay? I try to have a method to my offense. Just sometimes on purpose. Or sometimes just not on purpose. I try to have a method behind it. All right, so with those couple of prefaces out of the way, we talked last week, we kind of ended last week, talking about how true behavior change is identity change. And in the scope of what we're talking about as it relates to our walk and where Hashem has brought us closer to the Torah, the festivals, Shabbat, all these things, many people find it hard to do certain Torah things. You might find it hard to do a commandment. You might find it hard to, in other words, your knowledge of Torah might be very cerebral. You go like, I understand, yep, Shabbat, oh, it says forever. Okay, let me look up forever in Merriam-Webster. Yep, okay, that's what I thought it means. Okay, I now understand that the Sabbath, the seventh-day Sabbath, which we have as Saturday on our Gregorian calendar, is forever. I understand that. That is one whole different world away from, oh, I'm supposed to partner with God, and this is supposed to become a part of my life. It's supposed to become a part of my rhythm, my ritual, my practice, my habit. See, those are two world apart different things. And what we're pushing for, what I'm pressing you, what I feel like Hashem is pressing me in this season, is the things that we are cerebral about, that we are knowledgeable about. It's time to actually start doing those things. Understanding is not enough. But we have been handicapped as Christians in this way, that we have been taught that belief is what saves us, and that works have nothing to do with our salvation, the salvific process. And that is anti-biblical, and I'll be real preachy. It's a lie from the pits of hell, if such a place exists. See, I'm being offensive. I'm joking. All right. We have been taught that only through belief alone are you saved, do you stay saved, and are you changed during your salvation process. Belief alone. And the question is, where has that gotten us? Works, actions, practices, habits have been so demonized in some of our Christian circles and are still and increasingly demonized. I watched 3 videos this week. I don't know why I subjected myself to this nonsense, but I watched 3 hour-long videos this week in the last 6 months from pastors that are sitting down in front of a camera, talking head style, taking an hour to explain why the law is a curse, the Torah is a curse, why Jesus put an end to the curse, and why Christians or anyone who follows the Torah is crucifying Jesus over again. Every time you keep Shabbat, you're crucifying Jesus over again. Every time you say no bacon on your salad, you're crucifying Jesus all over again. So, the question is, how do we get, if we go, the Torah is for us, how do we get to be more observant? How do we get to be more practiced in the actual things of the Torah? What makes you a Cajun? Well, you're born that way, right? Well, what do Cajuns do? What are the things about Cajuns that you go yeah? They eat, right? What do they eat? Yes, the answer is D, all of the above, right? If something's reaching out of the gumbo pot, you get a big spoon and you hit it and you keep beating it until it dies in the pot. We eat, right? We eat certain things, right? You go all over the United States and there's Cajun pasta. Don't eat it. It's not. How else do you know people are Cajun? Their accent, right? There's a dialectic reason. What else? What's some other reasons? Music. Thank you, Miss Celia. That's like mine. Come on, guys. The music we listen to, right? So, if I'm looking at the Torah, I can't consider myself, in my mind, this is where we're trying to get to. If I'm a follower of Yeshua, and I want to worship the Father and follow the Father and be the image bearer and be the image of God like I'm supposed to be, what does that mean I do? There are some very distinct things that are supposed to identify me as a follower, a loyal follower of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What are those things? Well, we have 613 of them by traditional count, right? Again, not all for me, not all for you, some for men, we get into all that later. The problem is, though, we have not changed our identity. We have not changed who we are. We don't see ourselves. We don't know how to see ourselves. As we talked about last week, we left the Baptist church. We're not that anymore. We left the Assemblies of God. We're not that anymore. But we're not Jewish. So who are we? We're in this no man's land of identity. And the truth of the matter is that we are image bearers. We are loyal lovers of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through Yeshua the Messiah. The hard part is that people go, well, what are you guys? You can't say that every time. Like that's kind of a long title. You know, you want like a 1 or 2 word, and we just haven't condensed that yet. Improvements that we make are rituals that we start to do are only temporary until we change what we think about ourselves. Let's just use Shabbat because that's kind of what the one we've been working around lately. Have you ever done in your home with your family or by yourself if you're alone, have you done Like candle lighting, blessings, maybe made yourself a little loaf of challah, had some grape juice. Have you done something to mark the Shabbat in the evening of Shabbat? Have you done that, okay? Have you done it once or twice? Have you done it once or twice and you don't do it for 3 months, and then you do it once or two times or 3 times, and then you don't do it for another year, right? What is it that keeps that from being a consistent part of your ritualistic, habitual, cyclical life? What keeps it from being a part of your makeup is that you are not convinced that that's who you are. See, changes or improvements or tweaks to your habits, we talked last couple of weeks about outcome-based change, where we change our outcomes, right? We spent a long time on that last week, versus identity-based changes. Outcome-based changes are great. You change your outcomes, which changes your systems or your processes or your liturgies, which changes who you are. That can work. The problem with that is that if you don't believe in the things you're doing, you're not going to keep doing them, which is going to become really important in just a few minutes. So, our behaviors, our habits, our rituals reflect what we believe. They reflect our identity and what we believe about ourselves. What we do in our everyday lives is an indication of the type of person we believe we are. When behavior and identity are fully aligned, we said this last week, we are no longer pursuing change, but just acting like the people we believe ourselves to be. This is an incredibly powerful quote. When we have a behavior and an identity that fully align, we are no longer chasing change. We are just acting like the people we believe ourselves to be. So, lighting candles, saying blessings, having challah at home on Friday evening before the sun sets, the first 2 or 3 times you do it is really awkward. You don't know if you're doing it right. You're fumbling around with blessings. Should I do Hebrew or English or some Hebrew English or some? What do I sing songs? Do I not? I don't know what to do. What kind of candles? What kind of candlesticks? There's all this stuff that you don't know. It's awkward. The more you do it, the little easier it gets. It gets less awkward. It gets more comfortable and familiar. The more you do it after that, the more it becomes like when you don't do it, it's weird. When you don't do it, it's like something's missing. When you don't do it, why? Because it's become a part of who you are. It's become a part of your identity. And so you see how you're beginning to pursue change. The thing is that sometimes our actions and what we believe about ourselves are not the same. And so it's this beautiful dance between doing and believing and understanding ourselves that we start to have change. So moving kind of forward in this and pushing this a little bit further, we said that whatever we find contradictory to what we believe about ourselves, we're less likely to do. I think this is really interesting in the hand washing, right? It's a mitzvah to wash hands before eating bread. Not like with soft soap, lather up, rinse, not that kind of hand washing, ceremonial hand washing, right? With a netilat yadayim cup, 2-handled cup, right? You wash, you say a blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with commandments and commanded us concerning the washing of hands. Now, most of us don't wash hands super consistently. But here's the thing. Ask yourself why. And be honest with yourself. Is it because you don't know it's a commandment? No, you know it because we've done it during Pesach, we've done it during Kiddush, we've done it. You know it's a thing. Is it because you just forget maybe? That's a possibility. It's not a part of your habit and your ritual. You can buy a $4 plastic netilat cup on Amazon, right? So you can remedy that part after Shabbat. Or is it because in the back of your mind you have this thing that you remember from the Gospels where Yeshua blasts the Pharisees about washing hands? And is that really bad? Maybe consciously or subconsciously, that is a contradictory thing for you. So you go like, well, I don't know if I should do it or not. So you just don't to stay safe. Is it an identity question? Is it a process question, right? These are the things that we're going to start asking ourselves as we start drilling down on some of these rituals that we can find helpful, that need to ground us and need to help us, all right? So as we move forward, we said last week, we cannot get too attached to one version of ourselves. You can't get too attached to one version of yourselves, which is an ironic place to be. Because as human beings, the one thing we need is identity. I got to sit and talk with my sister yesterday, who I've talked about before. Her name's Jennifer. We call her Gigi. That's just always what we call her. And I got to sit with her for a while yesterday. She's a certified counselor and has been doing social work for, forever. And she's fantastic at it. And we were talking about this identity thing. And by the way, we're working on getting her here for a Saturday and doing like a morning and afternoon thing about counseling, therapy within the Christian world, spirituality. It's going to be really good. So we're working on that, and I'm really excited about it. I think it needs to happen. But we're talking about this identity thing. And so and how important, how it runs in the background of who we are and what we do every day. So we need that as people, but you can't get too attached to who you are today. You can't get too comfortable with who you are today. How many times have you ever run up against somebody that's just nasty? They're just nasty and mean. Hopefully not this morning here at OAM. But you just run up against somebody in your life. Maybe it's your family. Heck, maybe you look in the mirror and you see the person I'm talking about. Just nasty and mean. And when they're confronted, they go, well, that's just who I am. That's just the way I am. Or I get it honest, right? With no effort or desire ever to change because they're comfortable where they are. Some people are so comfortable in their anger. They might see that it does destruction to the world around them, but they're comfortable in it. Everybody's got issues, but this one's mine. There's none like it, right? Or there are many like it, but this one's mine. Everybody's got issues. The question is, how comfortable are you with where you are? Are you in love with who you are today, so much so that you can't hear anything that helps to try to progress you to maybe a better version of yourself? Someone who is more compliant with the image of Messiah, right? So how do we do this? We're still in the kind of theoretical part. We're going to get into the mechanical part in a few weeks, and it's going to hurt. So I'm just forewarning you. So we're going to talk about two-step process, I'm going to get it right, to changing our identity. Now, when Gigi comes and does the Shabbat deal for us, she's going to talk a lot about identity. And she's the expert, so I'm going to say, take what I'm saying today as part of the whole, right? Our identity emerges out of our habits. So we have this thing like, do I change my habits or do I change my identity? Which one do I change? And the answer is both. But more precisely, our habits are how we embody or express our identity. Listen to that. Our habits, our ritual, our liturgy that we live every day is how we embody who we believe we are. So a guy who believes that he is not appreciated, overwhelmed, overworked, unloved, unaccepted, untrusted. If he believes that about himself, part of his liturgy, his ritual, is going to be drinking himself into a stupor every evening. Because it's an expression of who he believes that he is. Or his liturgy is going to be taking it out in some kind of way. There's going to be some sign there of what he believes about himself, because our habits, our rituals are the way we identify what we believe about ourselves. If you believe that you are a Torah follower, but you don't do any of the Torah, you don't really believe that about yourself. If you believe that you're following Yeshua in obedience to Hashem's Torah, but you don't actually do anything, then you're lying to yourself. This told you this can get hard. The more we repeat a behavior, the more we reinforce the identity that's associated with that behavior. Some of you in here are super insecure, so I'm going to pick on you. So have you ever walked around with the attitude that like, well, I can't do anything right, right? Come on, we've all been self-loathing at some point. I can't do anything right, right? I'm just a mess up, just a screw up. All I ever do is mess everything up. Well, what happens when something goes wrong in your life? There you go. Proof, right? It reinforces what you think about. You make a mistake, right? You make a mistake. You hit the curb with your car and it pops your tire. Oh, there we go. See? It reinforces what you believe about yourself. Every behavior that we repeat reinforces some part of our identity, okay? The word identity is, I didn't know this until, again, we're reading the book Atomic Habits, James Clear. It's a fantastic book. He says that the word identity, or the idea of identity comes from two Latin words. The first word is essentitas. Latin is really good, right? You guys don't know. Essentitas means, think of essence, being, right? Being or essence. And the second word is identity, right? We get identity. But it morally means, it can also mean like identical, like repeating. So think of these two words, repeated being. Repeated being equals identity. Isn't that cool to think? That kind of scramble your brain. My identity is my repeated being. Whatever I'm being, whatever I'm doing is who I believe I am. Whatever your identity is right now, you only believe it because you have proof of it. You believe you're a loser? You believe you can't do anything right? You believe you only mess up and you can't ever get anything right? It's because you're only looking at the things that prove that identity. Does that make sense? You're only looking at the things that prove what you already believe about yourself. Do you believe you're an addict? You believe you're guilty, or you carry shame over something that you've done in your past that you haven't been cleared from or forgiven from? You only believe that about yourself because the behaviors that you do reinforce that identity. And so the more evidence we have to believe something about ourselves, the more we will believe it, and the more secure it will be, the more proof that that is who we are. The reason why this is so important and why I'm taking time to go through these quotes one by one and talk about them is because if you already believe yourself to be a follower of Yeshua, a disciple of Yeshua, and a loyal worshiper, an image bearer of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel, if that's who you believe yourself to be, but you're not doing the things in the Torah that God described as how you worship Him and how you live for Him, then there is a separation there. There's a distinction there. There's a chasm there. And so you're not giving yourself any evidence for that belief. This thing called cognitive dissonance. We read the Torah portion every week. And granted, we're in narrative sections, so there's not a lot of commandments in these sections. But we're going to get to Exodus, Leviticus, where it's just about all commandments. And we're going to read those things, and we're going to go, I believe in this God, but I don't do these things necessarily. Or I kind of do them halfway, or I might hit or miss once a month, or whatever. And we create a cognitive dissonance in ourselves because we believe to be those people that follows this God, but we're not doing the things necessarily, right? So whatever our identity is right now, it's only because we have proof of it. If we want to align our identity more closely with an image bearer of Hashem and a follower of the Torah, John McGrew last week said something that was really, really good. He said, we call ourselves Torah pursuant. We don't say we're Torah followers, we're Torah pursuant. And that's something that I started. Because I'm like, well, we're not really following exactly, right? He said, why do we say that? Why not say, no, I'm follow the Torah? And then make ourselves line up with what that is supposed to mean. And I thought, yeah, that's we're letting ourselves slide. As we repeat certain behaviors, evidence accumulates and self-image begins to change. So, many of you guys, going back to Shabbat, it was awkward at first. The more you did it, the more you did it, the more you did it, you began to see yourself and your family as a person and a family and a home that honors the Sabbath. If you're struggling with Erev Shabbat and marking the Sabbath, talk to some of these folks in here, not to embarrass them, but like Robin, like Brady and them, like Nikki and Mark, that have made this a practice in their everyday life. Talk to them, and they will tell you that they really loved the idea of Shabbat. They believed it, but until they started this liturgy and this ritual of lighting candles and saying blessings and really making it a set-apart time, they did not fully see themselves as Sabbath keepers. When they began this ritual, this act, this rhythm of doing these things, then they began to think like, oh, well, our house is we are Sabbath guardians. We are doing what the Scripture actually has commanded us to do. And it's not because of a belief. The belief was right, but there was no action there, right? The more evidence you have for a belief, the more strongly you will believe it. Conversely, the less evidence you have for a belief, the less you will believe it. How many of you have gotten saved more than once? Come on, be honest with me. You got saved more than once, like every other week, or like, twice a month at least, right? Semi-annually, you got saved. Baptized 4 times. Yep, I've been baptized 7, right? Yeah. Why is that? I would argue, based on what we're talking about, is because we don't have the actions to prove that we are who we are. We go, I don't feel saved. That's not it. It's not that you don't feel saved, because salvation is more than a feeling. Don't cue a Boston song. Don't sing it. Don't sing it. It is more than a feeling. It's a knowledge. It's an understanding. But again, you don't have evidence enough to believe that you are what you say you are. You haven't provided yourself enough evidence. How do you provide yourself evidence that you've been born again, that you're saved? Well, it's whenever sin comes that used to come towards you and you are able to withstand that temptation. That's a great way to reinforce that, whoa, I'm different. And the more you do that, if you're on a diet or if you're trying to get in better shape, the more days you make yourself go to the gym, the more you convince yourself that, no, I am a healthier person. The more you push away a second, third, fourth plate, the more you say, when you go to a restaurant, does that have bacon in it? The more you do these things, the more you give yourself evidence. It's evidence for you. See, we are so evangelistic, right? Again, one of these videos I watched, the only commandment of Christ is that we go make disciples. Great. What are you teaching those disciples to do? What are you teaching them to do? I was in the Baptist church. We were great at discipleship. I don't even remember anything they told us to do. There was no ritual. There was no nothing. And so we don't say hold the bacon so that the world sees, right? Look, oh, did they say no bacon? Oh, they're so different. I wonder what they believe. Like, that's not why we do that. I don't wear a tzitzit so that I'm walking around de Ritter and people go, oh my gosh, what are those? Tell me all about those. What do you believe? Where's your church? When can I come listen? Can I convert? What can I do to be just like you? That's idealistic, and that never happens. People look at them and go, what the heck is wrong with them? But the Scripture says these aren't for me. I mean, they aren't for everybody else. They aren't for everybody else. What does Numbers say about this, about tzitzit, about tassels? That when you look on them, you will remember not to go whoring after other gods. You will remember to keep my mitzvot, my commandments. They're for me. So a lot of times I just wear them inside my pants so that they're not a distraction. They're not a witnessing tool. They're not evangelistic. That's not the purpose or the point. We are so evangelistic in our minds, but you know what? Every time that I put these on, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me that I am a disciple of Yeshua. And he wore them because he was loyal to the God of Israel, and I'm wearing them just like he did. That's what it's about for me. It's a physical reminder. We used to wear What Would Jesus Do bracelets, right? What would Jesus do? Jesus would wear tassels. But I need something to look at, like to remind me. He would wear tassels. This is WWJD from like 3,000 years ago, right? But no, we got to reinvent the wheel. Okay, I'm off on a tangent. The point is that the things that we do, the habits, the liturgy, the ritual that we have reinforces what we believe about ourselves. So if you don't believe you are something, or if your liturgy is not lining up, then it has to do with your identity and what you believe about yourself. How much evidence are you giving yourself for who you want to be? All right. You can write this down. I just want to read this passage from Ephesians 4 real quick. Because there's a lot of passages I can read, but I want to read this one because I think it sums up the deal the most. This is Ephesians 4, 11 to 16. It says, he gave some to be emissaries, prophets, some as proclaimers of good news, some as shepherds and teachers, to equip the holy ones, the Kedoshim, for the work of service, for the building of the body of Messiah. Okay? This will continue until we all come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of Ben Elohim, the Son of God, to mature adulthood, to the measure of the stature of Messiah's fullness. That's the point. As a result, we are no longer to be like children, tossed around by the waves and blown over by every wind of teaching, by the trickery of men with cunning and deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in all ways into Messiah, who is the head, from whom the whole body is fitted and held together by every supporting ligament. The proper working of each individual part produces the body's growth for building itself up in love. Now, I may be completely reading this with the wrong lens, but this is exactly what we're talking about. Building up, being built up into the stature of Messiah. In the stature of Messiah. So, what is it about lighting candles on Friday night? When somebody asks you, let's say you just came into Torah, maybe you have, you're here right now, maybe you can remember when this was a thing. But let's say you're just, you're 6 weeks in, 6 months in, and you still don't really know which way is up, although you think you know everything, right, because of Dunning-Kruger. But a family member asks you, so tell me about the Sabbath thing. And all of the narratives and all of the speeches and all of the teachings that you've rehearsed in your head for when somebody finally asks you goes, has that ever happened to you? Man, you start learning about Torah, you start learning about Shabbat, you start learning about the calendar, you start learning about all these things and the holidays and stuff, and you start to rehearse these, the answers to the questions, right? Man, when somebody asks me, I can't wait, right? So you wear your tzitzit usually on your belt loop because we're young and we don't understand everything, and they're kind of short like that and they're sticking out, and you're kind of hoping somebody sees them, so they ask you. And they go, hey, what are those things on your belt loops? And all of the teaching about tzitzit that you had rehearsed and stood in the mirror in front of and went through word for it just, your mind just goes numb and you don't remember anything, right? Versus, you've been doing this for a little while, you have the knowledge, but you've been doing it. You've been doing it. You've been lighting candles every Shabbat. So when somebody goes, hey, why do you do Shabbat? What's the big thing about Saturday, about Sabbath? You can go, listen. On Fridays, we look forward to Shabbat. we look forward to the time we sit down as a family and look at the candlelight and remind ourselves that we are marking God's sacred day. And you can speak with it with such a passion and such a convincing tone and a convincing attitude, because you are convinced, because you have lived it. It is not just knowledge, it has become experience. And those changes are meaningful and big, even when they're really, really small. So, we supposed to change our habits or supposed to change our identity? And the answer is yes, because the most practical way to change who we are is to change what we do. Each habit only gets results, or not only gets results, but also teaches us something more important: to trust ourselves. So every time we do a mitzvah, every time we do a commandment, we not only get a result that is promised in the scripture, but we also learn to trust that this is who we are. This is who we are. Do you ever still wonder, in the grand scheme of things, is eating bacon really that bad? Do you ever still think that? In the grand scheme of things, is buying and selling on Shabbat really that bad? Sorry if I'm hitting any personal issues. I don't mean to. I'm just throwing stuff out. Have you ever thought, in the grand scheme of things, tzitzit's really not that big a deal? It would be awkward. They're expensive. What are you telling yourself? What are you reinforcing? You are reinforcing that you're not really who you say you are. You see what I mean? You're reinforcing that idea that I'm not really this person, because your habits and your belief about yourself has to change. You learn to trust yourself. You don't trust yourself. Well, if I say I'm a Sabbath keeper, but I'm buying and selling on Shabbat, I'm doing all the things that the Torah, not the sages, the Torah says not to do on Shabbat, how can I trust myself when I say I am this? Anytime I say I am this, how do I know I'm being serious? And on a super elementary level, well, I say I love God, but I also love pizza. I say I love people, but I'm super judgmental. I say that I love my fellowship community, but I'm only there a couple times a year. I'm not talking about OAM, I'm just general. We can't trust ourselves when we say we are one thing, but we don't do things that reinforce that. We can't trust ourselves. And man, I know not to trust people. I'm sorry. Did that come out loud? Did I say that out loud? I said the quiet part out loud. Let's be honest. It's a sad state of affairs, but none of us really trust anybody. I didn't mean to go here, but I feel the Spirit, so I'm going. There's not a lot of us that really trust many people at all. Why? Because we've been burned. We've been hurt. People that have said, I'm with you. I'm with you. 6 months later, they're not with you, and you don't even know why. They haven't called. They haven't taken your calls. Just poof, gone. So what do? You go, yep, never doing that again. And increasingly, your circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it's just you. Because I'm the only one I can trust. Right? Anybody? Good. You're all quiet. So then what happens when you can't even trust you? Because even in you say you're one thing, but you do another thing. Then who's left to trust? You could say, I trust God, but wait, He's the reason we're in this situation. He called us to be these people. We're trying to figure out how to do it. What does it look like? What does it mean? We can't trust ourselves. We have to give ourselves evidence. So, we are in an election. I don't mean the presidential election. I mean we are living in an election. We are living election. Each habit that we do that corresponds to what we believe ourselves is a vote for that thing. And when the votes mount up, the evidence begins to change, and the story we tell ourselves will begin to change. The good news is that we don't have to be perfect. In any election, there are margins of errors, right? We kind of know what that's all about. In any election, there is votes for both sides, right? It's never going to be unanimous on one side or the other when we're voting. There's always going to be votes for both sides. In the same way, you don't have to be perfect. Some weeks you're going to kill it. Absolutely kill it in a good way, by the way. You're going to kill it. You're going to be on. You're going to be great to people. You're going to be great to yourself. Your prayer life's going to be on point. Your diet's going to be on point. Your scripture study's going to be on point. Your mitzvah's going to be on point. You lit candles. You were prepared for Shabbat. Everything is moving and grooving like a well-oiled machine, and you're like, I got this, man. This is my rhythm. I'm a Torah, Yeshua-loving, Torah-following. Let's go get it. This is easy. What's next, God? And some weeks you're going to be like, God, please don't kill me. I'm doing the best I can. And I feel like an utter, absolute, abject failure. So please let me get through this day or this week. And I promise I won't look so much like hell on earth next week. Right? You have both. The question, you may have a bunch in the same day. There's going to be votes cast either way. Some days you're going to think, I can do this. Bring it on. Some days you're going to think, I can't do this. This is not who I am. The question is, which one wins? Are you casting more votes for the mature, built-up in Messiah version of you or the abject failure version of you? Which one are you casting more votes for? Not everybody else. Not, well, how do people think I did this week? No, forget people. You got to start with you. We'll get to people after you deal with you. How do you think you did this week? What are the votes telling? What is the evidence telling you this week? You don't need to be unanimous. You don't have a unanimous vote. You just have to have a majority, right? Your goal is simply to win the majority of the time. New identities require new evidence. And if you keep casting the same votes you've always cast, you're going to get the same results you've always had. That is true both politically and spiritually. If nothing changes, nothing is going to change. So I'll finish up with this. Two-step process. I started the two-step process 45 minutes ago. So here it is. The two-step process, you need to write these down. Number one, decide the type of person you want to be. Okay, we just read the passage out of Ephesians 4. We know the type of people we're supposed to be. Mostly. But decide the type of person you want to be. If you don't know what that looks like, we need to have a conversation about it. And I'm not talking about like sitting in the principal's office conversation. I mean, maybe that's something that we need to talk about as a community. What are we supposed to look like? What are we supposed to be? If that's something that needs to happen, we need to do that. So that's number one. Decide the type of person / the type of people we want to be, are supposed to be. Ephesians 4, Genesis 1. I mean, we've read ad nauseum passages about this. Number two, after you've decided, number two is prove that to yourself with small wins. This sounds really self-helpish. Yeah, it's totally self-helpish. Decide who you want to be. Anybody that's been in multi-level marketing, you've heard a speech like this before. Decide who you want to be. That's your goal. And then prove that with small wins. Do small things that will get you to where you want to be. The reason why it sounds self-helpy is because human psychology is the same. Whether you're in multi-level marketing or religious or an athlete or a salesperson or whatever you are, human psychology is the same because God is God. And he made all of us in his image. So this week your homework is deciding what type of person you want to be. What is your ideal version of yourself? Remember how we've talked about before? I've told you that the prayer that I've had for a long, long time, which is, God, no matter what life has done to me or mistakes that I've made that have twisted me and warped me in my mind and my emotions and all that stuff, my prayer has been for so many years, restore me to the idea that you had of me when you thought the world needed me. When you saw fit to create me in my mother's womb, what was your idea of who I would be, what I would become, what person I would be, what gifts that I would have to accomplish the purpose you created me for? What personality would I have that would affect the change you wanted in this world? And I want you guys to spend some time thinking about that this week. Just meditating on and praying on that. God, I want to know because we've all been warped by life a little bit, or maybe a lot of it. But what was it? What was the idea of me that God had in mind before I was born? And God, help me to recover that. Help me to get back to that person. Not despite the challenges I've had in life, but in spite of the challenges I've had in life. What is your ideal version of yourself? Who did God create when he thought to create you? And these are big questions, and many people are not sure. You might not even be sure where to begin. Like, I can't think about that. I don't know. Well, then here's another way to approach this. You might not think of the person that you want to be, but can you think about results in your life that you would like to have? If you can't tackle the cosmic question of who did God create when he created me, the ideal version of myself, that's kind of a big one, then can you answer the question, what kind of results do you want to have? What kind of attributes do you want to communicate as a person? What are the results that you want to see in your life as a person? Start there, then work backwards. Ask yourself, what kind of person gets these results? What kind of person lives this way? What kind of person has this kind of discipline? You want to become a better reader, but you don't know how, you don't feel like a reader? Then you just start telling yourself, think of yourself as a reader. How would a reader approach today? Well, instead of getting up and checking their phone, they probably get up and read a little bit. Instead of playing games before they go to sleep, they'd probably read a couple chapters of a book, right? Those kinds of things. All right. We're going to stop here for today and continue on next week. We are not going to be, let me just say this before I close, we are not going to be doing any specific Hanukkah teachings this year. We've done a bunch. They're on YouTube. You can check those out if you're interested in Hanukkah or the way that we talk about Hanukkah. And so I'd encourage you to check those out. Remember to get the book if you have not, Atomic Habits by James Clear. We're going to say goodbye to our live stream audience and bless them, and then we're going to go eat.